Welcome to Expat Life Germany. I'm your host, Sean Behrens, and this is episode 10. 10 episodes of this podcast already. Can you believe it? I guess time flies when you're having fun. And in this show, no guest this week. It's just me. It's just me, people. So you stick around. It's probably going to be good anyway. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the E-Scooterpocalypse, which is a phrase I've just coined. Although, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you think you've coined a term and then you go on Google and you realize that it's been used since like 1820 or something. So who knows? I'll also be talking about a topic that came up in an interview with my guest from last week, Natalie. We were speaking about fitting in Germany and what it's like interacting with Germans and learning German and trying to express yourself in German and how difficult it makes just making connections with people. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that later on. And I'm going to be announcing the winners of from the Bürgeramt book that I was giving away. That's all coming up. Stick around for episode 10. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but there is something going on in the cities of Germany. It's been all over the Facebook groups, it's been in several forums, and expats and Germans alike are all complaining about the e-scooters. So what happened was in June, as you probably know, it became legal for e-scooters to ride on bike paths and to share the streets with cars. Now, since then, e-scooter sharing has also started, which means that you can hire a scooter, ride it somewhere, and leave it. Now, if you believe the Facebook groups and the forums that you read, it seems like there is some kind of apocalypse happening, hence E-Scooterpocalypse. And I needed to know if it was really as bad as everyone was making it out, so I asked the question. Now, first of all, I posted it in my Facebook group, which is Expat Life Germany. If you go to the Facebook page, you can see there's a Facebook group linked. Join it. Join in the discussion. Right now, there's only around about 23 people, but it's growing, and I want you in it. Come and discuss things. Come and ask questions, so that it's not just awkward silence in there. But seriously, join the group. In the Facebook group, I asked the question, tell me about these e-scooters. Is it really as bad as everyone is making it out to seem? And one of the responses I got was from Laurie, who I interviewed in episode 6. And she said, I was just in Hamburg. The ones I saw went wherever. Bike paths, sidewalk, red lights. And the problem is twofold. One, you don't hear them. And two, they're fast. So that's what I'm hearing a lot of from a lot of people as well, that just these things are everywhere and they're fast and not really considerate of who or what is in their way. Karen also wrote, I spent a week in Berlin and almost tripped over them. They were randomly parked everywhere. Not good when you are a tourist trying to navigate a new city. No, and that's the other problem that I'm hearing about these rental scooters, is that people just leave them lying around on the sidewalk. There's tons of photographs of them just kind of in the middle of something. So if you're walking along the sidewalk, you stand a way better chance these days, as far as I'm understanding, of actually falling over an e-scooter. So that's not good. It's not good, people. On another Facebook group, things got quite entertaining. This was from someone named Peppy, who wrote, people when riding them look so smug, happy and smug. Like the person at the Mehringdamm crossroads, which I think is in Berlin, by the way, who jumped a red light. She had a smug grin as she passed us walkers. Pepe is not loving the smugness of these e-scooter riders. Just stop being smug, e-scooter riders. Stop it. Laurent was a little more restrained in his response. He said, I don't hate them, but it's troubling to think that eventually I will run one over. Now, I don't know what he means by this. Like, does he mean he's going to run one over? Or did he actually mean to write that one's going to run over him? Or maybe he meant that he was just going to trip over one that's parked in the way. Irrelevant. He writes further, I live in a very touristy part of town, and in the few short weeks they've been allowed, I've seen all manner of stupidity carried out by e-scooter riders. I thought bike rentals were bad, but e-scooters seem to inspire stupidity an order of magnitude worse than bikes. So wow, people, it is really bad out there. It almost makes you think maybe you don't want to leave your house. Just stay in your apartment, which you're paying a lot for in the big cities anyway. So why would you leave them? Just stay there and, avoid the e-scooters. I did get a positive response. Someone named Ante, or Ante, I don't know if I'm saying that right, he wrote that he loves them. So, I thought maybe he meant it ironically, so I asked, is it ironic? And he wrote, no, I literally tried them for the first time last week and I had a great experience and super good for the environment. So there you go, folks. Ante thinks it's super great and good for the environment, and it might just be one of those things like, don't knock it till you try it, Maybe a lot more people will be converted if they just rode an e-scooter. Someone who's not going to be riding an e-scooter anytime soon is Reem, who was annoyed enough to send me this audio message.
Hi, Sean. I have to say I hate those things. I hate those electric scooters. I don't think there's a place for them in the city. I hate that I see them parked everywhere. It's just so annoying. I don't feel safe when they're driving by. And so, I really think, I wouldn't mind them if there is a designated place for them or, some parking space for them. But them being everywhere is just so annoying. And it's just walk that distance if you're going to take that electric scooter. But I don't know. I'd like to hear from the other side of who likes them. But for me, I don't think they'll ever work.
So there you go. That is the response to the e-scooterpocalypse that is happening. I'm going to keep very close tabs on this. I've decided that this is something I need to follow. I'm not a journalist. I'm not an expert. I'm going to keep my eye on this, though. Let's just see what's happening. Let's see how long it is before these things become banned, or before new laws get brought into place. Now, last week's guest was Natalie from Australia, and we got to talk about a lot of different things, but one of the things that we spoke about was about how difficult it is to express yourself and how you come across as potentially dumb to Germans while you're learning the language. Take a listen to the clip.
So yeah, at the beginning there was a huge feeling of I feel stupid. I feel like everybody thinks I'm dumb, or at least incapable of saying anything other than okay and kein Problem,
I can 100% relate, because that's exactly how I felt for, I think, pretty much the first 5 years that I was in Germany, is because, and that also impacts how easily you can connect with the Germans around you, because they're not seeing the best you. They're seeing some kind of, and like you say, I've always had the feeling that they think I'm the dumbest person under the sun. And maybe I'm not that smart, but I'm smarter than I'm coming across right now. Now, that little discussion really got me thinking about things, and it just so happened that recently I was in a social situation at a fest, one of the many fests that are happening in summer, specifically in my village. It's surprising how many fests a small village has during the year. And I was sitting at a table and some Germans sat down next to me, and ordinarily it would be a great place to meet new people. It's exactly the kind of thing that you want to do, especially when you're living rurally like me, you're out in the country, you want to go to these fests and make connections with people. And it happened. We started talking to the Germans and things were going pretty well. But what happened was some other Germans then sat down and they started talking German. We were talking German the whole time. But what happened was the German sped up. They started drifting more into their heavy Franconian accents. And before you knew it, I was completely lost. I had fallen out of the conversation. And it's a situation that I came away from feeling frustrated, because I must have come across to them as quite disinterested, because it got to the point in the conversation where I couldn't contribute anymore. I couldn't discuss anything because I had lost the thread of what they were talking about. And so then you kind of just sitting there at the table looking around and, trying to make yourself seem kind of invisible and yet still there, and maybe throw in a nod every now and then so it looks like you're part of the conversation, but you just feel so awkward. And to them, you're thinking, wow, I must be coming across as really disinterested and maybe even aloof. And this happens a lot. This happens quite often, because what also happens during a conversation is if you're trying to follow it, sometimes you do catch up with the thread again, and then you think, well, let me try and come up with something to say. And by the time you've formulated a thought into an utterance that you want to say, the conversation has moved on. So you've wasted all that time coming up with something to say, but everyone's moved on. No one's going to care what you say anymore, and you can't say it. And it just, you come away, for me, I came away from the situation feeling just so frustrated, because I think the thing is that they didn't get to meet the real Sean. They saw some kind of watered down, uninteresting, seemingly aloof version of myself. And that's a frustrating thing to know that's coming across. So the other difficulties is making jokes is hard in German, which is something else I spoke about with Natalie in last week's episode, because the jokes that you used to make don't work in German. Sometimes the jokes I make are a one-to-one representation of what was in my head in English, and that just doesn't work. It just doesn't come across well. And you also feel like you're coming across as so dumb because you can't express yourself. And there's often times where people will be talking about something. I will think that I'm not following, and then halfway through the conversation, someone will say something. Maybe it's a news story or something that's recently happened or whatever. And then I'll realize, wait, I do know what they're talking about. I know of that. I just didn't realize that that's what they were talking about because I wasn't understanding the conversation. And the whole time they're having the conversation, they're probably thinking, this guy has no idea. So yeah, this is something that you will experience when you're living in a country that speaks a language that is foreign to you, and that you're trying to learn the language. It takes time to learn the language, and this kind of thing still happens even 12 years after you've arrived. Well, maybe it won't happen to you. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm really bad at German, but it's still a situation. I find it's happening less, but I still have those social situations where I just come away from completely frustrated. So that's one of the things I value about doing this podcast as well, is talking to people like Natalie and realizing, wow, this experience is not just me. It's also other people are experiencing it as well. And I guess the only solution is to up my German game somehow. So I need to look for the next level. My German has plateaued anyway, and I need to look at ways to bring it to the next level. And hopefully these kinds of situations will become less and less as I get better at German. But we'll see. We'll see. So in episode 4 of this podcast, I had the writers of the book From the Bürgeramt to the Bedroom, The Essential Guide to Living in Germany. And we discussed their book. And as a competition, I was giving away 2 copies of that book to listeners of the podcast. And in the end, I decided to give away 3 books. Now, I've gotten hold of 2 winners. One is Sandra from Nuremberg, and the other is Jenna from Washington State in the USA. That was so cool to find out that someone in Washington State is listening to this podcast, and they also entered the competition. And now they're getting a book about moving to Germany, even though they have no intention of moving to Germany. But that's great. That's great. I think it's great that people from all over the world are listening and are showing an interest in what life is like in Germany for expats. Now, there's still one winner who has yet to get back to me. I've written them a second email, and if they don't get a hold of me in the next 2 weeks, I will be giving away the 3rd book. I think I will just draw from someone who already entered the competition. So check your spam mail, people. So that's it for episode 10. And wow, 10 shows in and going strong. I'm very excited about the future of this podcast. I have a lot of ideas of what I want to do for the show. Still experimenting, and I love to hear feedback about the experiments and about what I do on the show. So if you think something works really well, or if you think something doesn't work, I'd love for you to get in touch with me and let me know. And it's been a blast. It's been strange at times. There have been times where I've been sitting in a complete stranger's living room and I've looked around and gone, what the hell am I doing here? But I've been able to have conversations and discussions that I wouldn't have had earlier. And as I said earlier in the show, there's a lot of things that come out in these interviews that I can completely relate to, and that I hope that you can relate to as well when you hear them on the show. And I guess I've realized that why I'm doing this is to get back in touch with that expat feeling, that feeling of adventure, because I'm pretty settled now. I still definitely feel like an outsider. I still feel like I'm an expat. A lot of times I still feel like I'm a tourist in Germany. But I've lost that feeling of wonder where everything is new. Like, there are parts of the culture that have just become normal to me. And I love speaking to expats, whether they're new expats or older expats, just to get the different perspectives and to get to open my eyes to some things that maybe I'm not noticing anymore. But yeah, as I said, get back to me. Let me know what you think of what I'm doing and what's happening on the show. And review the show on iTunes. Give it, hopefully, a good review with 5 stars. But whatever, I'll let your conscience be your guide. Do what you feel you must. But just get in touch with me, or you can like me on Instagram, Expat Life Germany, or you can follow me on Twitter, Expat Life DE, or just go to the website, expatlifegermany.de, and follow me there. It's been a blast. By the way, before I go, I know I was wrapping that up there, but before I go, I want to tell you what's coming for the month of August. I got some cool stuff lined up for you. I'm going to be talking to someone from France who is an agile coach living here in Germany, and he had a lot of interesting things to say about being a European expat in Germany. I also interview a brand new expat who has been here for 1 month. It's actually Sarah, who was almost a victim of the scam. You'll remember I released a bonus episode a while ago. She is coming onto the show for an interview, and then after that, I'm going to be doing a show on finding a job in Germany, and we'll be talking about all kinds of things, like what goes into your CV, what kind of things you need to be aware of while you're looking for a job, just tips and tricks that you can hopefully put into practice if you're in the job market. So that's all coming up in August. Subscribe to the show. Keep listening. I love that you're already listening. And yeah, looking forward to the next 100 shows. Let's do this.